In the summer of 2022, I was desperate and frustrated. I had quit my job a few months earlier to start my own business, and it wasn't exactly thriving. After 6 years of IVF treatment, my wife blessed me with a daughter early that year. While I was over the moon to be a dad, the stress of fatherhood, financial pressures from the clinic, and being the sole provider for my family took a significant toll. As summer approached, I decided I needed a weekend away to clear my head and get back into the grind. I planned a 2-night trip with just me and our dogs to a lake off an old logging road about 3 hours from home. It was one of my favorite spots, and I knew the woods there quite well. I packed my things, leashed the dogs, 2 blue heelers, and set out early one Tuesday morning. When I got to the trailhead, the parking lot was empty. Middle of the week, I was stoked to be alone. There was a single deer path up a canyon about 1,200 feet over 5 miles to get to the lake, and neither the dogs nor I met anyone else on the trail the entire way up the mountain. I got to the lake around midday, spent the afternoon fishing, and collected wood and water for the coming night. The lake was pristine and quiet. Not a soul in sight. I was truly alone, aside from the dogs. I found a flat spot on the east side of the lake where the vegetation cleared and I could set up a tent. I made a small camp about 30 yards from the trail. I would have preferred to go further up the mountain, but it was still early in the season, and when I got to my campsite, the rest of the trail was too snow-packed to continue any further. As it was, I had to navigate over several hard-packed embankments before I got to a suitable area. The icy slush was difficult to navigate, even for the dogs. When we finally crushed our way over and through a few hundred yards, I decided we would be going no further. I set up my tent, hung my pack on a limb, and took my fishing pole back the way I had come. I spent the evening catching and cooking fish at the edge of the spillway, and as the sun began to set, the dogs and I made our way back to the tent. Slipping over wet stumps and clumsily pushing through the snow, I stumbled into camp exhausted and ready for a fire. As I approached the site, though, I realized some things were out of place. My pack, which had been hung on a limb, was sitting neatly on the other side of the clearing about 20 feet from where I had left it. Sitting on top of it was a large eagle feather. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. The dogs began a low growl, but as they circled the site, there was no one there. As I approached my tent, I saw a stick had been used to carve an inscription into the dirt outside the entrance. It was 2 U's, one upside down, connected to the other by a thin line and then further connected by another line to a larger U shape. It looked like a Native American petroglyph in the shape of a bird or an eagle. Uniform, symmetrical, and above all things, fresh. Someone had been here. Someone neither I nor 2 very distressing dogs had seen, heard, or smelled. Someone who had left no footprints through the snow and mud, someone who had not passed us on the trail, or whose car had been parked at the trailhead. My stomach dropped. I felt the presence of being watched, but couldn't tell from where. I quickly built a huge campfire and, with dread, watched as the last of the sunlight sank beyond the ridge. That night was a fever dream. Pulling the dogs into the tent with me, I clung to my knife and flashlight, praying that whatever was watching me would leave. It didn't. Throughout the night, I was periodically awakened to a variety of sounds, yells, shrieks, the snapping of branches. The dogs would sit up, growl, and bark until I opened the screen of the tent and shone my light into the forest. At one point, I had just drifted off to sleep when the dog's low growl woke me up. Thinking I might have the drop on whatever this was, I slowly unzipped the tent and leaned out with my flashlight. Taking a breath, I clicked it on. Standing just 3 feet from me was a doe and her calf. I scanned across her, an entire herd was in the sight. As my dogs lost it, the deer spooked and sprinted back into the forest, a crushing and trampling noise as several dozen deer evacuated the area. As it faded, I heard laughter. The deep laughter of a man turned to crying as it escalated, then sobbing, and then to deep growling, much more boisterous than anything my dogs could make or even a bear would produce. I held the dogs tightly. Sleep eluded me for the rest of the night, and as soon as the sun peeked into the valley, I packed my things and left. I have never been so terrified in my life. Has anyone ever experienced something similar? It's been 2 years, and I can't make sense of it. I need answers.